My wife convinced me to invest $300, $0 in her cousin's business, only to find out she was secretly embezzling money from me for years. Then she stole my house and is now claiming I owe her $150, $0 in joint expenses in a bitter legal battle. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am. The craziest thing is, I had no clue any of this was coming. My wife, Sarah, always seemed perfect, beautiful, smart, ambitious. We'd been married for about 8 years, and honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. Sure, we had our disagreements, mostly about money, and she was a bit high maintenance, but I never suspected she'd turn out to be such a liar and a cheat. It all started about 6 months ago. Sarah convinced me to invest $300, $0 in her cousin's business. She promised it was a solid opportunity she was always good with finances, or so I thought. She said her cousin Mark had a promising startup and that this was a chance for us to finally get ahead. I was hesitant, but she was persuasive, and honestly, I trusted her. Plus, we'd been talking about buying a bigger house, starting a family, retiring early, things that seemed just within reach if this investment paid off. At first, everything seemed fine. The money went in and Mark kept sending updates about growth. But then little things started to bother me. Sarah became more secretive about her phone, whispering when she took calls, hiding her texts. She'd leave her laptop open but then quickly shut it when I walked into the room. She started going out more often, claiming it was networking or meeting with clients, but I had a gut feeling she was hiding something. One night I was working late at the office when I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "You might want to see this." My heart dropped. I opened the message, and it was a screenshot of a photo, Sarah in bed with some guy, clearly not me, and it was recent. My stomach twisted. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me. And not just that, she was doing it openly, right under my nose. I immediately called her the next morning. Her reaction was classic Sarah: denial, anger, and then when pressed, she spun some bullshit about how it was a mistake, how she was stressed, how she loved me but needed something else to feel alive. She called the guy just a fling, said I was overreacting. I could see her eyes, cold and dismissive, like she didn't care that I just found out she was sleeping around, possibly for months, maybe longer. I felt like my world was crumbling. I wasn't just betrayed emotionally, I felt betrayed in every way possible. The sting of that discovery hit me hard. I'd always been a stable guy, worked hard, paid the bills, kept my head down. And here I was, by someone I thought I knew. I didn't sleep that night, just lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. How could she lie so effortlessly? How long had she been sneaking around? And the worst part, I had no idea how deep this went. The trust I'd built with her was shattered, and I knew I wouldn't be able to look at her the same way again. After I saw that message, everything changed. I couldn't just pretend like I hadn't seen it. My mind was racing, trying to process how I'd missed all the signs. She'd been so convincing, so perfect on the surface. But deep down, I knew there had been cracks for a while. The way she brushed off my concerns about money, her secretive behavior, the way she'd always be glued to her phone. Now I knew it was all connected. I decided I had to confront her face to face. I waited until she got home from her business dinner, which I now realized was just a cover. When she walked through the door, I was already sitting on the couch, my arms crossed, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her I knew everything, the photo, the messages. Her face instantly went pale, then flushed with anger. She started lying right away, saying it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, and that I was overreacting. She spun stories about how she was stressed, how I didn't understand her needs, and how she was just trying to find herself, but I wasn't buying it. I could see through her bullshit. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses. I'd caught her cheating, plain and simple. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid. She even had the nerve to accuse me of not paying enough attention, that I'd been neglecting her. That was the moment I realized she was a master manipulator. She'd been gaslighting me for months, maybe years, and I'd been too blind to see it. The emotional toll hit me hard. I felt rage, heartbreak, and a deep sense of betrayal all at once. I'd trusted her with everything, my money, my future, my life. And she'd been sleeping with someone else while pretending to be the devoted wife. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with that other guy, heard her dismissing my feelings, saw her lying to my face. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. In the days that followed, I tried to act normal, but inside, I was just boiling with anger and confusion. I started to dig into our finances, trying to understand how she'd managed to embezzle money from me for years under my nose. Turns out, she'd been siphoning off funds from the investment, funneling money into her own accounts, and using some of it to support her secret life. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about betrayal on a massive scale. She had lied about everything: her business, her money, her feelings. I couldn't stay in that house with her anymore. The betrayal ran too deep. I decided I needed to get out, to separate and get my life back in order. But even as I planned my next move, I knew it wasn't going to be easy. She was already trying to spin her web, claiming I was the bad guy, that I owed her for joint expenses she supposedly paid for. She was bitter, manipulative, and clearly prepared to fight dirty. I'd never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd be fighting my wife in court over money she'd embezzled and lies she'd told. The biggest shock came when I found out she'd stolen the house. She convinced the lawyers I owed her $150, $0 in joint expenses, which was a complete fabrication to throw me off balance. I had poured everything into that house, mortgage, renovations, everything. Now she was claiming it was hers, that I owed her money, and she was using legal threats to keep me from getting my life back. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. All my savings, my future, my sense of security, gone in a flash. Honestly, I don't know how I kept it together during that period. Every day was a new battle, fighting her lies, trying to protect what was left of my finances, and trying to figure out what the hell I did wrong. The shock of discovering her infidelity, combined with the financial betrayal, left me feeling numb most of the time. But somehow, I knew I had to be strong. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. I had to fight for my own dignity, for my future, and for the truth. After I got hit with the legal threats over the house and her bogus claim of joint expenses, I knew I had to act fast. The woman I married, my wife Sarah, had become a complete stranger. She was no longer the caring, loving partner I thought I knew. Instead, she had become bitter, manipulative, and utterly ruthless in her attempts to keep what she wanted. The more I dug into her schemes, the more I realized how deep her lies ran, and how much she'd been planning to take from me for years. I started gathering evidence. I went through every bank statement, every email, every text. I wanted proof of her embezzlement, proof of her infidelity, proof of her lies. I hired a private investigator to follow her around for a few days. It was a brutal process, seeing her with that guy, the late-night meetings, the secret trips. I also found out she'd been secretly transferring money into accounts under her cousin Mark's name, which explained how she'd managed to siphon off hundreds of thousands of dollars. She'd been planning her escape for a while, I realized, and I was just the last person to find out. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, acting like the victim, claiming I was the one who was unfaithful, that I was neglectful and controlling. She threw around accusations, trying to paint herself as the wronged wife. But I was done playing her game. I knew I had to protect myself, my money, my house, my reputation. I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. I also filed a countersuit, demanding the return of my money and the house and exposing her embezzlement in court. I knew she'd fight dirty, so I prepared for a long, nasty legal battle. In the process, I discovered she'd been secretly seeing her lover for months. She'd even introduced him as a business associate to her friends and family. She'd lied to everyone, including her own parents. I was furious. How could she be so cold, so calculating? I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Every day I was hit with new revelations, more lies, more betrayals. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, each one more rotten than the last. One of the most shocking moments was when I found out she'd been using the money I invested in her cousin's business to fund her affair. I had trusted her to make the investment, and she'd secretly been embezzling from it all along. She lied about the business's success, telling me it was growing, when in reality she was draining the funds to support her secret life. I felt sick. All that money, my hard-earned savings, gone because she was greedy and dishonest. As the legal proceedings dragged on, she ramped up her attempts to manipulate the situation. She hired her own lawyer who tried to spin her as the victim. She claimed I was abusive, that I was trying to ruin her. She even accused me of cheating, which was laughable given what I'd uncovered. But I knew her game. She was trying to turn everyone against me to make me look like the bad guy so she could keep the house and the money. I had to stay strong. I knew I was fighting not just for my house or my money, but for my dignity. I had to be strategic, patient, and relentless. Every document, every piece of evidence, every court hearing was another step toward reclaiming what was mine. It was exhausting, emotionally, financially, physically, but I refused to let her win. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, but I was determined to come out of this with my head held high. The legal fight dragged on for months, and during that time, Sarah's true colors kept showing. She was relentless, more lies, more accusations, more manipulative tactics to try to turn the court against me. She tell anyone who would listen that I was controlling, that I was abusive, that I was the one cheating. It was all a desperate attempt to justify her betrayal and her theft. But I had the evidence now, proof of her embezzlement, her affair, her lies, and I made sure every bit of it was presented in court. One of the most shocking moments came during the hearing about the house. Sarah claimed she'd been the rightful owner all along, that I owed her joint expenses she'd paid for years, and that she had every right to keep the house. Her lawyer argued that I'd neglected her, that I'd been emotionally absent, and that her affair was just a way of coping. I sat there listening to her spin her story, feeling a mix of rage and disbelief. How could she be so cold, so calculating? I had uncovered her secret bank accounts, where she transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had emails from her cousin Mark, admitting that she'd been embezzling money from the investment. I had texts between her and her lover, confirming the affair was ongoing. I even had witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking out late at night. Everything pointed to her being the one who betrayed me, not the other way around. Despite her efforts to manipulate the court, I stayed calm and focused. I presented every piece of evidence meticulously. I argued that I deserved to have my house returned to me and that her claims of joint expenses were fabricated. I also demanded the return of the money she'd embezzled and the settlement for emotional damages. It was a long, grueling process, but I knew I had to fight for what was rightfully mine. The most bitter part was when she started claiming I owed her money 150, zero in joint expenses. She said she paid for, even though I knew that was a lie. She'd been draining our joint account, claiming it was for family expenses, but in reality, she was using it to support her affair and her secret investments. I had bank statements showing large transfers into her accounts, and I brought those to court. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was damning. In the end, the judge saw through her lies. The court ordered her to return the house to me and to pay back the embezzled funds. I felt a huge weight lift off my chest, finally some justice, but the emotional scars remained. I was exhausted, drained, and still trying to process how someone I loved could betray me so completely. That said, I was relieved that I was reclaiming my life piece by piece. But the aftermath wasn't just about the legal victory. It was about rebuilding trust in myself. I'd been lied to, used, and manipulated. I had to learn to trust my instincts again, to recognize the warning signs I'd missed. I also realized how much I'd been naive, thinking that love alone could protect me from such betrayal. Now I knew better. I learned that money, trust, and honesty are the foundation of any relationship, and if even one is broken, the whole thing collapses. I also learned that sometimes the only way to truly get justice is to fight for it, no matter how hard it gets. After winning the court case and reclaiming my house, I thought the worst was over. I thought I could Finally breathe, start fresh, and put everything behind me. But life doesn't work that way. The emotional damage was deeper than I expected. Even with the house back in my name, I felt hollow. The woman I loved, the woman I married, had betrayed me so thoroughly that I wasn't sure I'd ever really recover. The first few weeks after everything was settled, I tried to focus on myself. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the pain and anger. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the feeling that I'd been utterly foolish. I kept replaying all the moments I missed, signs I ignored, conversations I brushed off, the times I thought she was just stressed or busy. It was a brutal realization that I'd been blind to her true nature for so long. One day, I finally sat down and made a list of everything I'd learned. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her manipulating me financially, lying about her intentions, and using me as a cash cow for her own selfish needs. That hit me hard. I had poured so much into that marriage, my time, my money, my trust, and it was all a lie. It made me question everything I believed about love and loyalty. I also found out that she had taken more than just money. She'd taken pieces of my life that I'll never get back. She'd taken my sense of security, my confidence, even my faith in people. The worst part was realizing I'd been so naive. I thought I knew her. I thought she was my partner, my best friend. Instead, she was just a con artist wearing my wife's face. As I moved forward, I knew I had to rebuild myself. I started going to therapy, talking through everything, how I felt, what I'd been through, what I wanted next. It wasn't easy. Some nights I'd lie awake, angry and hurt, questioning how I could have been so blind. But slowly I began to see that I wasn't responsible for her choices. I had done nothing wrong. She was the one who lied, cheated, and stole from me. In the end, I decided that I wasn't going to let her define me. I would rebuild my life on my own terms. I sold the house and moved into a new place, smaller but mine. I started focusing on my health, my career, and reconnecting with friends and family. I learned that the most important thing was to trust myself again, to listen to my gut, and to be cautious about who I let into my life. Looking back, I realized that betrayal teaches you some hard lessons. It shows you how fragile trust can be and how important honesty and integrity are in any relationship. It also teaches you that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. I don't regret fighting for what's right, even if it was painful, because now I know that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And someday, I hope to find someone who truly deserves my trust, not someone who's just good at lying and manipulation. Now, looking back, I realize that what I went through changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in happily ever after, in the idea that love could conquer all, but that illusion was shattered. What I learned is that trust is earned, and it can be broken so easily. The betrayal by Sarah cut deep, more than I thought possible, and it took months of hard work to even start piecing myself back together. One thing I've come to understand is that I should listen to my instincts more. There were small signs, her secretive phone habits, her dismissiveness when I brought up money, the way she'd avoid certain conversations. I kept telling myself I was overthinking, that I was paranoid. But now I see that ignoring those signs only gave her more room to deceive me. From now on, I'll pay closer attention. Trust is important, but it's also fragile, and I need to protect my own peace of mind. I also learned that no matter how much you love someone, you can't fix a relationship built on lies. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. I could try to save it, but deep down, I knew that her betrayal had hollowed out whatever was left of our marriage. Holding onto someone who's lied so thoroughly only prolongs the pain. It's better to cut your losses, learn from it, and move forward. Most importantly, I've realized I'm stronger than I thought. I survived the shock, the heartbreak, the legal battles, all of it. I came out the other side with a clearer understanding of what I need and what I deserve. I no longer see my worth through her eyes or anyone else. I see it in myself. That's the biggest lesson of all. No matter how badly you're hurt, you can rebuild. You can come out better, wiser, more cautious, but also more resilient. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'd say this: trust your gut, Don't ignore the signs, and don't be afraid to walk away if things aren't right. You can't fix someone who refuses to be honest. And sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself again. I've learned that life is unpredictable, and betrayal can come from the people you trust most. But in the end, your strength lies in your ability to pick yourself up, learn, and move on. Because if there's one thing I know now, it's that I'm capable of surviving the worst, because I already have.